There's people still joining. We'll let the people flow in, but as you know, if you attend these regularly, it's the 24th webinar today. We go fast. My name is Martin Gill, and a very warm welcome to our Security Thought Leadership webinar. And this is where we debate a topic of importance to the security world. And the idea of thought leadership is by debating the issues now, we have a better type of security in the future. And our topic today is one that builds on work that's been discussed much in the past. The role and job complexity of modern security officers are current changes, an enhancement or an impediment. And I'm very grateful to IFPO, both internationally and the UK chapter. We've got Sandy Davies on the panel, I'll introduce in a minute, behind this idea. The complexity of security officers has been debated, and it goes something like this. On the one hand, there is the view, it's getting more complex. They've got to manage data. They need to be better trained. It's getting more difficult. There's more technology to manage. And on the other, this view that, hold on a minute, this is just very basic work. Don't get carried away. It's being diluted by having to do other things like water the plants and fill the photocopier. We'll debate it all. It's coming your way. In a minute, I'm going to introduce our four panelists. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Once they've done that, all four of them, I'll come to them for their opening statement. Once they've done that, we'll ask you, the audience, for your questions. So there's a question and answer button at the bottom, the Q&A button. Please use that to ask for questions. And if you get them in early, I'll endeavour to incorporate them into a question. So thank you very much indeed then to my panel. Let me ask you each of them to introduce themselves. So first of all, let's go to David. David.
Good afternoon, Martin. My name is David Ward, and I am the CEO of Ward Security Limited. A security company with just over 1,000 employees, many of whom are frontline security officers. I'm also the chair of the City Security Council, a group of 23 major security companies that represent tens of thousands of security officers.
Thank you very much indeed, David. So from one security entrepreneur in the UK to another one in Switzerland, Joachim, could you just please introduce yourself?
Hi Martin, I'm Joachim Ritter and I'm the proud chairman of Inter and also the founder of Inter. We supply guarding and technology, blended approach across the UK and Europe. And we have around about the same size as Ward, I guess, around about 1,000 employees, but at peak times up to 6,000 or 7,000.
Thank you very much indeed. And now over to the Netherlands, and Joop, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, my name is Joop Verdonk. I'm the Managing Director of European Security Academy, which is a training institute. I'm working in and from the Netherlands.
Thank you, Joop. And finally of our panelists, all the way over to the United States, and Sandy.
Yes, good day all. I'm Sandy Davies. I'm the Executive Director of the International Foundation for Protection Officers, and we truly are an international organization with students in over 56 countries and members in roughly 68 countries.
Thank you very much indeed, Sandy. Okay, so I'm now going to go to each of my panel and ask them for their opening statement. Just 3 minutes for them to express their views on this topic, on the complexity of security officers' role. David, your first thoughts, please.
I firmly believe that security officers are very adaptable people and that they have the ability to take on new tasks and methods of work, provided, of course, they are given the correct training and support. Even the most advanced technology will never be able to replace a warm welcome and a friendly smile from a security officer, be it in a supermarket or a corporate building. The fact that the security officers use their observational training and carrying out an immediate threat assessment as they greet you will go totally unnoticed by most people. Security officers were already dealing with an array of different technological devices before COVID, and so new technology being implemented now is unlikely to faze most security officers deployed on the front line. The requirement for a physical presence will never go away. Many of the major incidents in the UK have had a security officer in attendance as one of the first responders. In recognition of the growing demands placed on the security officers, I believe there should be a more certified continual professional development training programme for frontline staff that is recognised in a pay grading scheme, and at the same time this would also enable the client to have a much better understanding of the skill set, the security team that they have on site. That's my statement.
David, thank you very much indeed. I appreciate that. And let's go to Switzerland and Joachim. Your opening statement, please.
Okay, so the first thing I want to say regarding the topic, we're putting complex and difficult into the same sentence, and that is not necessarily true. We we look to the past and we see somebody who may just be watching a door waiting to be broken in. That's a very simple job, but it's incredibly difficult to carry that out day after day. And I think with the technology we've got now, the time and attendance, the incident logging, and all of the unifying systems, they make the guards work perhaps more complex, but it gives a better product to the client, and also makes a guard having a more of an interesting job. We are talking about a fairly low-paid group of sector. We have the challenge in this environment to also attract people to this job, make it interesting, and I think technology can help doing that. I do agree, however, that when it comes to human interaction, I cannot see it being replaced. In fact, I'm not going to say ever because I can't spy that far ahead, but I don't see that being possible. There was vinyl, then there was CD, then was streaming, and now we're back to vinyl again. So it's you can overreach when it comes to technology. We see that a lot. We see big companies pushing it because there's no HR involved. On our side, we provide a blended approach. We try and find the best of both worlds. They'll also say something else on training, which technology really makes a lot easier for the guard. Our module training system for the guard really enhances the experience of being a guard within our company. And you need technology to do that. For the client themselves, they're always asking, where can I make cost efficiencies? Where can I utilize technology? And we support them in that. It is, there's an economical question here. On the same side, as much as we evolve with the technology side, we have to always evolve the guard alongside it. That's my statement.
Joachim, thank you very much indeed. And just say to the audience, if you get your questions ready on the question and answer button at the bottom of the screen, we will come to you and see if we can incorporate it into our questions. Joop, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Well, to be honest, I don't train guards myself because in our country, in the Netherlands, that's all government licensed, and that's either distant training or it is done on the job by the employees in from the service providers. But what I noticed, because my target group are supervisors and managers, is that there's a growing need, especially with large companies, to train their supervisors in security. So what we are offering are the IFPO certification programs, and they are quite popular, especially with multinationals. And that is very nice as well, with quite a different high schools in the Netherlands. So we have students working, that is the second generation security managers, or the new generation security managers, working on their bachelor integrated security, who are voluntary minor, will do the CPO programs from IFPO. So that's what I notice with regard to this specific topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Joop. I appreciate that. So Sandy, let's come to you for your opening statement, please, on the complexity of security officer role.
Thank you, Martin. The role of the 21st century security officer is becoming more complex and ultimately requires better educated officers. Not only are they the first responder in most circumstances in the areas they are assigned, they are tasked with more and more assignments requiring real technical knowledge in order to operate. Modern technology plays a significant role. Companies want the latest and greatest camera systems, access control, badging, keying, and tracking systems and spreadsheets, mobile devices, biometrics, facial recognition, robots, and drones. Without properly trained security officers, the money spent on these systems is often wasted due to an inability of officers to use technology to its utmost. It has been suggested that at times the attention that has to be paid to meet the technological requirements is actually a distraction to the duties they need to physically perform, such as looking up and outward, scanning the environment, making eye contact, looking for problems. With the deteriorated relationship with law enforcement that has been growing, I believe that the security officer are and will be filling the trust gap in many ways. More and more, we will see the security officers being utilized to alleviate pressures and address issues that law enforcement cannot, or where they may have limited capability to assist. We indeed are seeing better educated and professional officers who have undergone background screening and with other pre-employment protocols. In addition to post-secondary education, the officers may have completed a professional certification that requires a recertification component. Many of these officers have come from a completely different background than in the past. He or she may have an electronics degree, perhaps a design background, or perhaps a background in criminology or criminal justice. More commonly, the employer has provided adequate training and invested what is required to provide the tools for them to conduct their duties. Now, there's still way too many 21st century officers who do not reflect the professionalism of the officer just described. Too often they're inadequate training, limited pre-employment protocols, and basically they're sent out on patrol with little or no knowledge on how to perform their tasks, endangering their own lives as well as others. In many cases, officers are being set up to fail as a result of the failures of others to adequately design, install, and maintain security systems and programs. The failure of the officers is often a reflection of the failures of their leaders who are inadequately trained. Unfortunately, officers are often made the scapegoat of the failures of their leaders. Wrapping this up, technology is both enhancing and undermining the security officer. It can enhance their job if it's not too overwhelming, and as long as there is additional IT support to take care of technical issues. Technology is only as good as the person using it. Remember, technology can be hacked. If the power goes out, you're flying blind. Companies are reducing the human guard force. They are being sold technology in the name of cost saving due to the salary and benefits paid to the officers. We should remember that the human is the best weapon system. Humans have intuition. They are sensors and can detect when people are nervous. At least for now, technology can't match human intuition. Also, a facial recognition camera isn't going to jump off the wall and get between you and a bullet. Thank you.
Sandy, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well, look, let's start to take on some of these issues. Joachim, let's come to you first. You, in your opening statement, mentioned the fact that they were a relatively low-pay group. And Peter Hale's got a question here, Joachim. He says, low pay doesn't, of course, always mean low-skilled. And we've got to break that interchangeability of terms. And that security officers are capable of much more complex, but also deserving of better remuneration. Now, I suppose the thing is, this has been one of the things that's dogged the security sector, this perception that this is a low-paid, unskilled job, and security is judged worldwide on it. But as for people like you, aren't you at the mercy of what clients will pay rather than your own ambitions to do a good job?
Well, yes and no. I mean, first of all, I just want to say I didn't say low skilled. I only said
no. You said low paid.
Relative low paid.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Also, I would also like to give a shout out to our favorite clients who actually, some of them, they do like their guards to get paid well. And there has been some improvements on that as well. We'll see what happens here after COVID, of course, when everyone's budget is restricted again. But I think most security entrepreneurs and security owners have been at times going into tenders where everything is about the bottom line number. And you're up against a procurement who doesn't see the value you can project. So it's up to us to be strong at times. And we have stepped out, I think, alone the last 12 months of 4 tenders where we said no when we saw minimum wage in the same line as supplying a guard, because it's just not fair and it's not worth it. In terms of the skill base, I actually think that a skill base, I mean, I was a guard when I was 19 years old, when I first came to London. And the pay then was approximately 20% lower than what the pay is now. So I used to earn 3 times as much as a waiter, where probably a waiter can get the same pay with tips or working in Starbucks as a guard. But the guard has to, first of all, has an SIA license if it's UK, or if another country, they have to have another type of license. And they have to take on responsibility. And they now also have to get trained in all of these things. Mm-hmm. Now, there is I'll give a different view also, which is that—
Just very quickly, Joachim, just very quickly, you can sum up.
Okay, sorry. So the other view I just want to give is that where technology can actually help the guard is when we have a client that has a need for a highly skilled person, then we can also command a better wage for that guard. If it's just a door, then they get minimum pay. If it's that they are actually in there to do an intricate and complex task, then we can also ask for more money for that guard. Okay,
Joachim. David, let me come to you on this related point, because Joachim raises a good point here that as security suppliers, you can walk away. I wonder what the answer is, though, to addressing the problem. I mean, all the time that clients can get away with paying the least and there are suppliers to do it, it will drag the security world down to its lowest common denominator. Isn't that an ancient problem that it's difficult to get away from? Is there a solution?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think the point I made earlier that a client engages a security company who provides security officers, they have no idea of the skill set, albeit they've got an SIA license. To be able to demonstrate the skill set of the officers on the ground and their capabilities would in turn ensure they have a better rate of pay. Yes, it affects the charge rate, but the client's getting a much more robust team and a much more able team than they would have otherwise.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I appreciate that. Job, let me come to you this bit about training. It seems a no-brainer, okay, that you know, the more that you train, the better officer you're going to get, and the more money you can charge. In the Netherlands, where you're based, you have the same sorts of problems, though, don't you? You have the same problem whereby officers are still low paid and still struggle from the same market forces that are existing elsewhere.
No, not really, not really, because I think since the 60s of the last century, we have a good agreement with the government to set standards for the security industry. So every security guard working in our industry has to be licensed, and the license he only gets when he has a full theoretical program followed by a practical program. And there's the wages for these guards are not that bad at all in the Netherlands. So I think we are quite lucky.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me come to you, Sandy. And of course, you're one pushing the training issue around the world. What's your sense on bringing up that group you described in your opening statement that don't meet the higher levels? Again, it's very, unless it's regulated by government or unless there are restrictions on what people can buy,
Right.
we are forever going to face this problem. We're going to be judged by our lowest common denominator, and that's those who are low paid, low skilled and doing security work.
Exactly, and unfortunately that has plagued our industry for years, and I think until we can gain the respect and support of state departments, government agencies, we're spinning around. We're not making any progress in raising the bar for security officers. I mean, you get what you pay for, basically. I do find that officers are coming in with already a certain form of education. They are seeking professional certifications. They are demanding more money, and they're getting paid more money. Though I still am a firm believer that until we have an international standard, we've got a lot of work to do. I think that with an international standard, the respect that we need and the support we need will come hand in hand with that.
What's the barrier to getting an international standard?
Well, I think the biggest barrier is that there's no real research that we can develop these programs with. What are the security officers of the 21st century doing? What is their tasks? Until we can clearly identify what they're doing, how can we develop programs that are going to be productive for them, and how can we take these programs to state departments or government agencies without research to support it?
Cool. Oh, well, wholeheartedly endorse that one as a researcher, of course. David, let me come to you. A question from Lawrence Dodds. It's about this role of technology, and we've been hearing about these in previous webinars, David. And in fact, it's the topic of next Thursday. And he says, are technologies replacing or reducing man guarding, or are they enhancing their ability to perform more efficiently? It's a bit of I suppose it cuts both ways. Where do you see it?
I see technology as a tool to assist the officer in doing their role, be it a facial recognition camera, be it a knife arch, whatever. But it's still the officer that steps forward and has to interject, has to speak to the person that they're dealing with, and evaluate further. As Sandy said earlier, the facial recognition camera won't jump off the wall and start asking the person questions. So definitely an asset, definitely something to assist, but not something to replace, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, let me ask you that, Joachim, because you also offer both in across your security offering. What do you sense is the engagement of the view of clients? And I suppose what I'm really interested in understanding is whether you sense that during the COVID-19, there's been any change in the review of the role of security officers against the value of technology. Joachim.
Yeah, I mean, if you start from the end, it's quite clear what happened over the COVID-19 period and what our clients needed. And it wasn't new cameras and it wasn't new tech. It was guards at the front line. And you know, we've been supplying guards to food banks. We've been supplying temperature guns, guards with temperature guns, full PPE equipment, etc. And you know, there's no technology to go and do what we've been doing the last 2 months, and what we're doing right now as people are returning to work. And you're going to see it more and more. You mentioned in your opening statement that one of the first things people are going to see when they come back into this new world is going to be security guards, and that's what we've been preparing for the last 2 or 3 months. I'll agree with David on the technology side. Even though we also use technology, we are, as I said, we are only using it where it enhances the service. Everything that I think all the panelists agree on is human-to-human interaction. That's where the important lies. If you can cut down a reporting of an incident via an app and do that in 30 seconds rather than try and write it on paper or something else, then you've taken a tedious task and you made it a lot easier. And many other examples in that vein, of course, increasing the amount of human-to-human interaction you can get with the guard, because that's where the strengths are. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to come to you, Job, next, but next week, next Thursday, I'm going to say a bit about this at the end. We've got 2 ex-offenders coming in, a former prolific armed robber and a former prolific burglar, to talk about how they would exploit opportunities in this current crisis. It's quite alarming, actually, when you listen to them next week. I was speaking to the guy yesterday, and he was saying to me that one of the things about technology that you can always manage that. It's people you've got to watch. That's the big danger. They're unpredictable. Job, in the Netherlands, of course, you seem to be around the world at the forefront of thinking in some of these areas. Benelux in particular has been seen to be. What's your sense of where the Dutch are in terms of this thinking about technology and the extent to which it can take over much frontline security work?
It can't, I think. I think technology is only supportive to the role of the security guard, because it's the human who takes the decisions. So it's only supportive to the guards.
Do you think clients think that, though?
In the Netherlands, they do. Yeah, they sure do.
Okay, good. Let me come to Sandy. Sandy, I've got a question here from Jimmy. He says, what are Sandy's thoughts that the security sector is dominated by off-duty police officers who are acting as blockers to professional standard in the US? It's very US-centric, so I'm just going to give you a very quick chance to answer that. If you
right. I see that changing. I know that young people are now looking at the security industry as a career versus just something that they are working towards a law enforcement career. The opportunities for security is far greater than perhaps law enforcement. So I think that a new group is coming in. It's not all former ex this or ex that. It's young graduates who see it as a career, and it's not part of their retirement package or program.
Yeah, thank you. We're about to publish a report on security careers, actually, which will be out later. If you want a copy, you're going to have to go to Joachim, because it's under embargo, and only the members can release it. But quick question on this for you, Joachim, perhaps. And Sarah Spencer's got this point. And it was a question that came in advance as well. But let's go to Sarah Spencer's version. She says, I really appreciate the hard work the guard force is working and taking on a lot of extra duties and reception and other things, Joachim. But there is a danger, isn't it, that this debases the role. That on the one hand, it seemed to be extending the function and usefulness of what's supplied. On the other hand, it rather dilutes this professional security officer role. Joachim, what's your view of that? Sarah Spencer's question.
I have two, because she's right, it can happen, and we do have clients, and I think somebody mentioned early on, refilling the coffee machine or whatever else. They're thinking, well, as the guard is there at night, why don't they just go and do that? And what's the next step? Scrubbing the toilets or something else? But so that is definitely the debasing of the role. But it's not always the case, of course. We have many times where, for example, in this situation, it's not debasing role. In my opinion, the word risk and security goes hand in hand. And if there's a risk, we have some shifts, obviously 9/11 was a shift, suddenly the risk was anti-terrorism. And that has then become part of the Bible of security and training, as I'm sure everyone is aware of. And that hasn't changed. It wasn't so prevalent as it was before. That didn't debase it. This is a virus we've been dealing with the last 3 months. It's also a risk. It's a risk to human beings. And therefore, again, you have the army coming in and you have security forces coming in to support it, as we've been doing also. So as long as the word risk is part of it, I would say that we have some responsibility to adapt.
Yeah, okay, there's a remit there. David, I'm going to ask the same question to you, because this is, of course, quite a pertinent issue, isn't it? When we're talking about the professionalisation and we're talking about complexity, when you're doing some menial task, it does get in the way sometimes. Your thoughts, David?
Yeah, very much. I mean, obviously the traditional changing the photocopy of paper, etc., is something we've long been against allowing the teams to do. You take the last 2 London Bridge attacks as examples. Those security officers on the front desk were the people that were looking after people coming off the streets, initiating building shutdowns and liaising with control rooms and police officers, etc. The guy hadn't been there, been busy filling up a photocopy of paper. What on earth would have happened? They need to be alert. They need to be able to prepare themselves and react, you know, the whole of their shift. And the problem is, it may be their first minute or last minute of their shift. They need to be ready and prepared to go. And if they're busy doing menial tasks that are taking them away from that function, then it's pointless having them.
Thank you very much indeed. Yop, a question here from William Deal. What's your view about the role of security supporting the police? Now, I think what's behind William's point is that you get better recognition and you raise the perceptions of the industry if you're seen to engage meaningfully with the police. Now, let me just ask you that as a straight question about its relevance in the Netherlands. Your thoughts, Job?
Yeah, I think that's the same. We started the public-private partnership quite some years ago, and we had quite a few good projects running on that concept. It disappeared over the last few years, and now the discussion is starting again. Because, well, the police is running out of officers, and the industry is getting more and more professional. So that at the moment in certain districts, there's quite a good relation between police and security companies.
What's the barrier, Yop, to that being progressed quickly?
What the barrier is? Well, the barrier is that the problem of sharing intelligence still. It's the barrier, the silos between public and private. Okay,
I mean, I'm going to come to you with that, Sandy, because this is a big issue. In fact, you mentioned it in your opening statement about the link with the police. And, you know, part of the problem is that in some countries, being seen to take on jobs of the police alienates the police. It's not seen as a positive. There's a matter of degree, of course, but it can be seen as alienation. And some views of police officers about the security sector are pretty negative. I mean, amongst the pockets of high-profile positive statements, there's some pretty negative views. Where is the opportunity there to meaningfully engage with the police?
Again, it goes back directly to training, the need to better educate these officers, to educate the public that these officers are receiving good quality training programs. I think that the police will also deem that as an attractive feature for them to better liaison with security. I see it happening greater throughout the US as well, that you know, going back probably 10 years ago, you wouldn't get the support of a policing agency as a security officer, or if they did arrive at a facility where there was an issue, they didn't really hold a lot of faith in what the officer was able to do. But I think those things are changing, and I think that just educating the public is as equally as important to let them know that these are no longer the night watchmen or the mall cops. These are highly trained officers.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to come to David Ward in a mix. I bet he's got some views on this one. But I mean, my point is, Sandy, it's also a case, surely, of educating the police that things have changed. I mean, some of them are stuck in the past.
Right. Exactly. Yes, there has to be. I think it's important that security agencies, contractors educate the policing organizations in their community to be aware of what they're doing to provide quality people that could and will assist them in their roles.
Okay, thank you very much. Dave, I'm going to come to you because I know this has been part of your work in the centre of London, and it's been you've been leading it. David, you've got a pretty good rapport with the police there, I believe. Perhaps you could just say something about that. But I'm interested in how is it possible to replicate that, or is it possible to replicate a good relationship with the police elsewhere? What would it depend on? David Ward.
It's a two-way street, isn't it? If you don't make the effort and engage, then they won't make the effort and engage. The City Security Council have worked very closely with the City of London Police, but also the other emergency services. Last year, we managed to take our first exercise. We're only a fairly new group, involving a number of tall buildings in the city, along with the London Ambulance Service, the London Fire Brigade, and the Police Service. We're all in the same incident together, and we all need to work together. So to be able to work side by side with the officers and demonstrate the skill set of the security people, because they know the building better, they understand the evacuation protocols better. They need each other to help each other. And going forward, even with the COVID, we have been doing joint patrols together. Officers have been assisting police officers in attendance, really having broken down a lot of barriers and made the effort to engage with each other at all levels through the force. And it's worked really, really well. The City of London Police have been very welcoming and very supportive.
But Dave, I want to know this. How is it replicable?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm doing the same work in Kent, the Kent Police. A programme we're working on with the City of London may well be a communications platform that can go out to every county, every police force. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes at the moment. It's about engagement and, you know, taking away those stereotypical barriers of the press and the script writers writing security officers asleep at their desk or whatever. I mean, it appalls me every time I see it. You know, we have moved so far in our industry with the quality of people and the work they do, and that stereotyping has got to stop. And then we've got to engage more with each other. We've got to pick the phone up and talk to the police, and they've got to talk to us. We're eyes and ears that can help them.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Let me come to you, Joachim, and a question directly from you, from Mike Cummins, who's based in the United States, Joachim. And he asked this question. Can you, and it's a big question, so I'm going to ask you to be concise, Joachim. Let me just try and get the question for you. He says, can you discuss the role where meaningful discussions take place with clients about the strategic direction of their organisation and how the security function can support through tailored services to their situation? And I guess the point is including their appetite for technology and not security based on what they think it should be. In other words, Joachim, how easy is it for you, thinking generally about this, to engage with clients meaningfully about the type of security they need rather than what they say they want? In other words, are they prepared to listen? Can you engage meaningfully, or is it got to do what you're told they're paying?
Sometimes you don't have a choice, but for the most part, what we will try and do is give them direction. At the end of the day, this is what we do all the time. They are hiring us for a reason. They're not supplied. They don't have an in-house department. They're not running their own security. So they come to us for advice. So it's our responsibility to say what we think is the right thing to do and be brave about it. It might not be what they want to hear at all times, and we will warn them about that too. It comes to budgets very often with clients when it comes to private clients or public listed clients. It comes to budget. They have to justify what they're spending their money on, and there and that's why we come with a blended approach, because we get this all the time. We get people who want more of this or less of that. And it always comes back to the same discussion. What is it going to cost? And when we show what you can do with both parties, both from tech and guarding, then we try and shape that and hit the mark. I will say it's pretty good. I will say our clients, they listen, and they'll come up with their point of view, and often it starts, as you all know, with a tender that describes what you have to fulfill. If you write something else to reply to that tender, you don't even get to the desk. So you need to sort of be led by the client. And when you get invited and you are there at the desk, then you need to say, hey, here you have this budget. This is what you want to spend. How about looking at it from this point of view and look at it this angle? And there we go for quality more than quantity. And we are much happier, and we just do the same thing. And I'll just touch on one more thing, which you may not have asked about, which I think is important when it comes to guards' wages. What we try to do, if they think they need X amount of guards, and we feel they can do with fewer amount of guards, but better paid guards, then we will also highlight that it will cost the same. They'll have better guards, they'll have guards who are well looked after, a low turnover staff, and then we'll push that too. And yeah, I think we have good success with it.
Thank you very much indeed. Very quickly, Yop, a question from Raymond Abaji from Nigeria. Is there a role for former military and police in modern day security, or is it just so different now?
A role for police and military in
former police and military officers?
It's changing. If I look at the situation in the Netherlands, we had a lot of policemen working in private security. But nowadays, and we started, I think, about 11 years ago, starting with security management education in high schools. And these are the guys who are entering the security market because they have been working, or they have made a bachelor, started working in security, and they are now going into the senior positions. So it's changing in our country.
And for the better, in your view?
I think so. Yeah, sure. They are very. I'm very jealous on their education.
Yeah. Well, you're part of giving it, Yop. But let me move on to Sandy. Sandy, a question from Brian Sims. And he talks about the reason why officers fail, and you sometimes mention this yourself, but you focus on training. His bit is about effective line management is often the problem. We often hear this, Sandy. Do you agree that is a problem en masse? And if so, what's the answer? Sandy Davies.
Right. So I think that each level of an organization has to carefully explore what their roles and responsibility are, and to have diverse training in each one of those components. I think that there has to be a gradual leveling or a staging of each order or function of an officer, and it has to be, or for mid-management or even senior management, it has to be very clear, and it has to be very visible. You know what I mean? It's got to be transparent at every level.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much indeed. David, I'll come to you. A question from David Nunley. I'm going through the questions quickly because we're running out of time. And it's a question actually that I wasn't quite so aware of, David, actually. Let me put it to you and see whether you agree with the question even, but your thoughts anyway. Why are negotiations about the role of security officers still geared towards observe and report as opposed to being proactive and deter and prevent? In other words, why is the role often restricted and the full dynamics of what security officers could do not more widely deployed? David, your thoughts?
It depends on the deployment of the officer. I mean, a lot of the city buildings, for example, an officer may be deployed by a client inside the building, observe something outside the building, which may be a minor crime or incident, and so to observe and report is helpful. Clearly, if there's an incident, if there's an altercation, they are going to interact and they are going to get engaged in support. It's a case, obviously, that we don't want physical intervention unless we have to have it, but the officers are trained to do so, and this is the concern. The client wants a 6-star reception service from the front desk, but still wants the officers to have the ability to restrain and hold back so if they need to. It's trying to make sure we have the right training in place and the right people in place, rather than trying to give one person too many roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, Joachim, just do you want to comment on that? I mean, Glenn Kitteringham is asked us to talk a bit about training. We've got a more complex job. I mean, first of all, Joachim, do you agree the security officer role is becoming more complex? And the second bit is, do you think the training is up to the needs of the changing job? Joachim. Okay,
so yes, it's becoming more complex, but also more interesting. And the training, well, that's the responsibility of the entrepreneurs and the business owners who run security companies. We make a huge deal about training, and we have a very, very large online platform where we can have all sorts of modules that we tailor to the guards, to the clients, and to the experience. And it's up to us to make sure that training gets delivered in an efficient manner and that benefits the guards and therefore also the client. So yes, but I will not say that's an industry-wide thing. I think the industry can do better. We really are pushing everything we can to make sure that we put the emphasis on the guard and on their abilities and enhancing those.
Thank you very much indeed. So let me come back to you on this issue of training. Obviously, it's close to your heart. I appreciate that. Anwar Sayad from India has asked the question about the need for certification. Okay, but there are so many. It's confusing, and clients are confused. In fact, it's come up on a previous webinar. Really, that's a fair point. It's difficult to know where to go sometimes to evaluate all the options available to you. No doubt you've got a personal view on that, but whether you can comment more generally about how we go about to solving the complexity, if you think we need to. Sandy.
Well, I think that that's a very good question. I think that, you know, you look at all of the certifications that are available, it's like alphabet soup. Where do you go? I mean, there's so many different acronyms and training providers. I think that you have to do your research, because there's a lot of organizations that are conducting training that is redundant. It's not meeting the mustard. I think that you have to look at the longevity of the organization. I mean, if it's only been around for a couple of years, you might want to look at an organization that has a greater vast exposure or have been around. Look at how many people that have gained their certification. Look at testimonials on how their careers may advance with certification. I would warn people who are seeking certification to really do your homework. That a lot of organizations promise things that may not be possible upon gaining the certification. Ask for a strong list of testimonials and verify those. Some of these training programs are excessively expensive, and they make a lot of promises, and it just don't come to fruition.
Thank you very much indeed. A question very quickly, David. I'm going to come to you because William Deal has got a question. If just 20 seconds, if I might. And he's advocating joint training between police and security officers. You mentioned patrols. I mean, training is a theoretical ideal. It can happen from time to time in pockets, but that's about it, isn't it, David?
No, I disagree. I mean, two of the projects we're working on at the moment, one crime scene preservation and the other cordon control, both to assist and both training the police.
Thank you very much indeed. Panel, thank you very much indeed. Audience, thank you very much indeed. I'm now going to ask each of our panelists just to sum up their thoughts on this issue. Each of you 20 seconds. Let me come to you first, Job. Your final thoughts, please, Job. Just 20 seconds.
Well, I don't really know. Go to another piece then.
Thank you. Joachim, thank you.
Okay.
Your final comment, 20 seconds, please.
Okay, so we have to continue, and the industry have to continue to evolve. And tech is part of that, but the star of the show is the guard, and it's the guard that we have to focus on. I can't, in the 25 years I've been in this industry, I cannot recall one critical incident where the guard wasn't a hero. I can't recall an incident where tech could have solved it. So we always have to remember that. And yeah, that's my closing statement on that.
Thank you very much indeed. David, your final statement, please, just 20 seconds.
I want to see continual professional development for security officers from the very beginning of their career all the way through, not from management levels and up. It's got to be at all levels, and it's got to be certified.
Thank you very much indeed. It seems only right that I leave the very final comment to you, Sandy. Sandy, your final comment, please.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And I'm going to sound like a broken record by making this statement, but I feel strongly that in order for security officers in our industry to gain much needed respect and support, we need to step up to the plate. Simply put, what is needed is research and subsequently corresponding relevant educational program development. And more importantly, a clear and concise international standard that must be created and adhered to. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Panel, thank you very much indeed for your questions and for your time. Well, I've very much enjoyed hearing from you. I'm surely Joachim's right that the security officer is the star of the show. And if in the past it hasn't always felt like that, going forward, clearly, that's something that we're going to need to think about. And we've got a webinar especially on this in a few weeks' time. So my very grateful thanks to IFPO for sponsoring it. My very grateful thanks to the panel and to my supporters for their ongoing support. Just to remind you all that if you're good at what you do, if you know someone in the security world who is good at what it does, please, each of you, just make one nomination each in any of these countries where entries are open. They are India, United States, Benelux, Kenya, Romania, Australia, Germany. Hannah tells me that's open from tomorrow, and in the UK from the 1st of July. You know, it's really important we recognise those who are outstanding at what they do. And that's what the OSPAs are about. Thought Leadership Seminars, we've got to go through it all again on Thursday when we're talking about technology, and we'll pick up on some of the issues our panel raised today. Next week, we've got two, looking at this perceptions bit of what's happening in security around the world. And on Thursday, we've got 2 ex-offenders coming in. That's Thursday next week to give their views, a prolific armed robber and a prolific burglar. And they're going to give their views. And it's striking. I've got to tell you, it's quite frightening what they're saying. We look forward to that. So once again, thank you everybody for your questions. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Very much look forward to seeing you all on Thursday, if you could join us there. And wherever you are in the world, stay safe.
Thank you.